Welcome back to Rookie Mistakes, Episode 4. Rookie Mistakes, the sports podcast for the sports inept. I'm Ethan.
I'm Jeremy.
Today, we are talking about referees.
Referees. Hot topic.
Very hot topic.
Yeah.
Very, very hot topic. They usually decide games, so I hear. So
Yeah. People, if your team loses, they definitely decide
Yeah,
games,
they're the ones
for
to blame.
Sure. Yeah. Before we do, how's your week been? I heard you had a bit of a struggle on the
Bit of a
train.
struggle on the C train, which tends to skip stops after 59th Street, Columbus Circle, on just occasion and decides not to stop when you need it to. So, yeah, it was
Not
a little
ideal.
aggravating, but I've wiped it away. I'm ready for a nice pod.
Okay, good. I don't remember which one of your friends after the first episode wrote in, what are the odds Ethan shows up late?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was David Berger.
Oh, okay. All right. Berger knows you well.
He knows me very well.
No fault of your own. The train gets finicky. So
Train does get finicky.
Yeah.
You would think with all that money they're bringing in from betting, they would have better infrastructure and have the C-stop at every stop, but
you would
alas.
think. I hope they're putting it into schools and that's their excuse.
Yeah.
That's what I read, but you never know.
You never know with those things. The government is such a mess.
I know.
So I did want to bring up refereeing generally. I first heard a Michael Lewis podcast, and it's called Against the Rules, and it's all of these different episodes on referees in everyday life.
Oh.
And I dug around a little myself because a referee, generally speaking, is defined by an official who watches closely to ensure that rules are adhered to and arbitrates on matters arising.
Okay. Important that they arbitrate because I can
arbitrate.
watch closely from the stands.
That's true. That's true. If they were only
But I'm
watching
not a ref.
closely, yes.
Fine.
But there's some interesting. I conjured up a bit of interesting insights on refs in everyday life. One such ref is the International Telecommunication Union, who writes the NATO phonetic alphabet. Do you know what the phonetic alphabet is?
No.
It's pretty much what decides how to say words. So like. Peter Piper picked a but that one.
Pickle peppers.
Pepper pickle pepper.
Yeah.
Rob slobbed on Bob's cob. That type of stuff.
And the fact that but I don't know if you've seen this video. Guy has a great short on YouTube about how the English language makes no sense, and he goes from bomb to tomb.
Yes, that
Okay,
exact thing.
These people decide that.
These people decided.
Okay.
They're the International Telecommunication Union. And what's also interesting is they designate the exact words which you should use when spelling out a username. So, for example, my username is E. Goldberg, and I usually do, E as in eggplant, G as in grass. They actually have a specific set of words
To describe
designated
each letter?
for each letter.
Ooh, so
And-
is M as in Mary their go-to, or S as in Sam?
M as in Mike, and S as in Sierra.
Absurd choices.
Absurd-
No way.
Well, I don't know. I'll send the link. It is a first10em.com/NATO-phonetic-alphabet. It seems like a credible source.
I won't remember that.
I
You
don't
have
know.
to send that to me.
Yeah, that'll be in the show notes below. But one such example of a referee in everyday life. Another very similar example, Merriam-Webster editors, people who define words for us.
There you go.
Another such example is critics in the art world who do appraisals on art pieces, who pretty much just decide of their own volition how much art's worth.
Don't you feel like, going back to the dictionary, don't you feel like it's weird that they're just people?
Yeah, that's the great.
Obviously, there are people who do everything, but they're just people who decide the definitions. And
They-
we just there's a higher authority that makes these
Yeah,
definitions.
exactly. And I know every year there's a new word in Merriam-Webster. I remember in 2019 it was woke. They added the word to the dictionary.
Right.
And there are these people who have just decided
It makes no sense.
unanimously that woke deserves to be in the dictionary.
Are those the same people who choose the word of the year? Do you know what the word of the year was in 2023?
Was it woke?
No, it was Riz.
Oh, Riz. That's very funny.
Yeah.
And the last example I'll give of referees, which I guess I'm closer to, is the Google Gmail spam detection software, which decides whether an email goes to your spam or not.
Oh, that's smart.
So, they have this whole AI algorithm on determining the domain that it comes from. If it's Fox News spelled with a Z, it's probably going to go to your spam.
Smart.
Whether the senders are authenticated. If you as a user flag a sender and then I get that sender, there's a higher chance that it's in my spam.
Oh, smart.
So, again, a referee that we actually have in everyday life and we don't actually realize.
I like that. I have had a bunch of my work emails go into spam recently. So
Yes.
I have to take that up with someone
Yeah.
who writes the code, presumably.
Presumably.
Smart people like
Smart-
you who would know how to write the code. I don't know how
I
code
wouldn't go
works.
that far, but I appreciate it.
You're a smart guy. You would know how to do it.
And then the last referee, whether I like it or not, is my manager. And I think that
Always.
She
Everyone's got a manager.
Yeah.
Unless you run things.
Unless you
but
run the
even
show.
then, you probably report to someone.
Yeah.
All right.
And we report to you, our audience, to make
That's
sure
right.
that we're doing our job right.
That's true. Give us some feedback.
Yep. Anyway, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So just a reminder, last week we talked about fantasy sports, and we got an amazing question from my sister, Chana. Thank you for submitting this. She also wrote in parentheses, my favorite sister. I can't say that. I love both my sisters equally.
Well, it's on air now. So.
Nice try. Won't let you get away with that. Her question was, and just a reminder, fantasy sports are when you draft a team of players and they get points for you. And sometimes you can be in multiple leagues within the same sport, so you have different teams. And her question was, if someone is a part of multiple fantasy leagues, does that person typically try to draft the same team for each league, or at least get them as close as possible so that it's easier to keep track of? Or is there strategy in having various configurations of teams? Maybe it's personal preference, but seems like a lot to keep track of if it's the latter. Tremendous question. I personally try to pick some of the same players. A, because if I like a player, I want to get them across the board so that I can root for them no matter what. B, it is a little easier. Like, I don't like going into a matchup one week where I'm playing against someone who has a player I have in a different league. Because then you just don't know how to root. You're like rooting for all these different permutations. It's very confusing. So good question. I personally like to match up when I can.
Yes. Well, I do not actually do any fantasy myself, as you know. But I imagine that there's some hedging efforts where, you can have certain people from certain teams on different areas. And I also do similar things for March Madness, where I make a couple different brackets. One of them is based on, which jersey I like the most. The other one is just like ones all the way through.
Yeah.
The other one is like what I, of my very limited knowledge about basketball and me reading ESPN articles, decide. So yeah, I do some of the similar stuff that you said, but I also try to mix it up a bit. Get a diverse roster. You know what I mean?
It's a great example. Have you ever won March Madness picking based on your interesting criteria?
I have not won March Madness, but I've been part of some brackets that actually give a payout to those who come in last, and I have won that a couple times. It's like you get your money back type thing.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never done that, and
which is just as hard as getting in first, if you think about it.
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I also haven't won March Madness, and I like to think that I know about college basketball. So any strategy works. We're going to have a March Madness episode when March Madness comes around, so stay tuned for that. But let's dive into refs here. Refs, as you mentioned, huge hot topic. They tend to have an outsized impact on the game. They're involved in scandals. Some have been suspended, kicked out of the league. Some have gone to jail. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then baseball, for example, is trying to get rid of umpires almost entirely with robo-umps. They're trying to do the game.
Are the umpires the only people behind home plate, or is that also the first base umpire? Are those considered umpires as well?
They are considered umpires. They're not trying to get rid of those as quickly, but the home plate umpire is basically just like the conduit for calls from the robot that they are now testing in different levels of baseball. So,
well, you know what I also heard or remember from, I think, like 2017 is in hockey, there are people who actually are like up in the booths determining if a goal goes past the goal line.
Yeah.
And they're like pressing the buzzer.
Oh, yeah.
When in reality, like a simple video camera would easily be able to tell so much better.
Yeah, I mean, in almost every sport, there's always a crew not on site that has all of the different camera angles. And when the ump or the referee is calling someone to figure out the call or watching the replay, they're getting that call from somewhere else.
Wow.
Those people are just like checking out all the angles. It's literally someone's job to do that.
Yes, that's crazy. Because there's like a Blackhawks game in the Stanley Cup. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where someone shot on the Blackhawks, scored a like Stanley Cup winning goal, and then it like got lost in the net, and no one knew where the puck was.
I do remember that. There was like no celebration. Yeah, no one really knew what was going on because only the player who shot it saw it go in.
Yeah, and no buzzer was sounded. Yeah, that was crazy.
Kind of wild.
Yeah, very.
Anyway, let's dive into training camp. And training camp this week is brought to you by Search for a Meaning. The Friday before the Super Bowl, February 9th, Tony Newmark and Gelf, friends of mine, are dropping their new song, Search for a Meaning. Just a quick note, Tony showed me this song on his phone. It's not out yet officially.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. It's actually such an incredible song. I asked him to play it for me multiple times. Anytime he showed it to someone else, I was like, wait, I need to come listen also. So I've been pushing him. Please release this song. I'm going to play this on loop on my phone. I'm super excited for it. Just kind of cool to have friends who are super talented like this.
Super talented. Do we get a little teaser or no?
Unfortunately not.
No, we can't even put in like a 10-second clip of the song in here?
You know what? I'll bring it up. That's a good idea. I'll bring that up. But
it'll be our intro for next one.
I
Next
love
pod.
that. Yeah, but just very cool. They're super talented. The song is amazing. Quick note about the song. Tony actually wrote up some ad copy here, so I'll show him some love.
Okay.
He wrote, while you're placing your bets on the 49ers, knowing full and well that the NFL is rigged and that Taylor Swift and the Chiefs are not losing this game, make sure you're doing it while listening to Search for a Meaning, a song about how everyone is just searching for what gives them meaning in life, no matter who you are. That is Friday, February 9th. It drops on all streaming platforms. Follow Tony and Gelf on Instagram, on their socials, on Spotify. They crushed it with the song. It's awesome.
Heck yeah. And is this his first song?
It's not his first song. He had a song this past year called Amsterdam that was also a banger.
Nice.
Personally, this new one is my favorite of his, but Gelf also has a ton of music.
Nice.
They've been crushing it.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to hear it. Hopefully I can get a pre-release version, but if I don't, then I'll be expecting on the 9th.
Okay. Keep an eye out for that, guys. But yeah, let's dive into refereeing, okay? We wanted to use the NFL ref as our example because the NFL is in the playoffs right now. The Super Bowl is coming up, so they are a hot topic as usual. But I kind of wanted to take you through what a typical journey looks like for a ref to make it to the NFL.
Okay.
Because it is way more complicated than you would expect. It's almost as difficult, if not more so, to get to that level as it is to get to the level of being an NFL player. So it's pretty wild.
And and I don't know if you know this, but NFL refs, do they start as being players and then realize early on that they probably aren't going to make it professionally as a player?
Mostly no.
Okay.
Yeah.
You knew that question was coming, though.
I thought it would be coming. No, typically not. These guys they're good athletes because they need to be able to get up and down the field, but they're generally not good enough to be.
But they must love the sport just as much as the player.
For sure.
Yeah,
for
if
sure.
not more, because they love the rules of the sport.
That's true. They love the behind the scenes. They're all about it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm ready.
The journey for a ref looks a little bit like this. It's at its shortest a 10-year journey. That's like best case scenario. You work your way up from the bottom level to becoming an NFL ref. The way that works is you first have to go through training. So colleges, they have officiating organizations, and then there are third-party training schools that actually like teach you how to be a ref, what positions you need to stand in, what the different calls are, etc. Then you actually need to get registered in your relevant state in order to become a high school ref. No one could just like walk on and become a ref.
Yep.
And that's typically where refs start. They'll start in high school, and then eventually you move up to college. That can take 5 or more years. And
what does that transition look like? You're like a really good high school ref.
Yeah.
You get scouted by like some college ref and it's like, we need this guy.
It's a great question. So you don't get scouted by college refs. The NFL, and we're about to get to this, so we can just jump to this now. The NFL has a development program, and they have 60 to 70 scouts that are all over the country scouting referees. They go to over 500 games a year, these scouts, just looking at different refs.
But high school refs or high school and college refs?
High school and college refs. Yeah, pretty wild. So
that is wild.
I'm not exactly sure how they get pulled from high school to college. I think that one's a little bit simpler if you're a high performer.
Yep.
And the colleges will note that about you, or they probably get their information from these scouts. They'll pull you up to college. But then once you're in college, you have to actually earn your certification. And the way you do that is by doing certain training sessions. And those are like set out for you by the NFL. And you have to go through those in order to become a certified college ref.
Okay.
So that's your next step in the process. And then it's not required, but it helps. This is literally from the NFL's page on referees, which is so much more expansive than I thought it would be.
I actually saw the same thing, and I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
How much info they have.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Great website. Great website.
Very impressive website. I never thought I'd see myself looking through it, but it was pretty cool. They say that it's good to have research experience. So the same way that you gain these certifications, it's almost like you don't need research experience to become a ref. The parallel I was trying to make is like if you're applying to med school, you know how it's like, oh, it's good to have research.
Yeah.
They say like you should have research experience because it gives you a better shot. That's like the NFL's way of saying like you need this certification. It helps, but you don't absolutely need it to get the job, but that's their way of being like, if you don't have this, you're not going to get it. If you don't have a cover letter when you're applying somewhere, they're not going to read your application. So that's the NFL's nice way of being like, go get a certification while you're in college.
You know what'd be crazy is if they had to do like dissertations where they broke down another ref's play and be like, this actually, if you think about the rules of the road here, they made a bad call.
I actually do think that's part of their development program.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty legit. So then you're at the college level for a minimum of 5 years, and it's often more. So 5 in high school, 5 in college. And then if this development program, these scouts note you as someone who's a high performer, you get put into a pool for it's called the Mackey Development Program.
Okay.
And the development program has 4,000 referees.
Okay.
And they'll cycle through different people at different times. And once you're part of that program, it's essentially your chance to get exposure and to get the experience.
It's the combine.
It really is. So they're constantly watching you. They're seeing how you perform in certain games. They're taking notes on you. This is like,
and at that point,
really
you're doing still college games. You're not reffing professionally at all.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Exactly. So the way that it works in order to get into this program that the NFL has, it's like an interview like for any other job. You get seriously vetted. They have medical clearance, you have a background check, you have a physical assessment, and then you have an in-person interview with a panel of NFL officiators.
Wow.
Like their official department. And that's just to get into their development program that has 4,000 other refs who are vying for the NFL. Which is pretty crazy. Once you're accepted into the program, what they have you do is you study film with veteran NFL refs who are currently in the league. They have you analyze differences in rules between the NFL and college. They have you attend the NFL's annual preseason officiating clinic. Didn't know that was a thing. They have you go to NFL mini camps and training camps, and then they have you ultimately officiate an NFL preseason game. So it doesn't really matter for the season, but this is really, really rigorous just to get to the point where they're considering you for the NFL.
Wow.
And then at that point, once you go through the whole development program, you get a grade. They have these listed on their website. They were hilarious. They have, if you're ready for the NFL, that's top level. That means you could get called up to the NFL. Middle is great work, but room to improve.
Ouch.
That's how they phrased it.
That stings.
And the last one is not the right fit.
Wow.
Yeah.
A very PC way of saying it.
Yeah. PC way of being like, you're not good.
GTFO.
We don't know why we let you into this development program.
And what's the breakdown? What's the, how many people are in each cohort? Do you know?
I don't know, but ultimately, all of these 4,000 people in the development program are vying for 121 spots in the NFL. That is how many refs there are in the NFL. So you need to be the cream of the crop to get there. So the guys who are on the field, even the ones who we rip on every week for making mistakes, they were the best of the 4,000.
Yeah.
So pretty incredible, rigorous process.
So actually, this leads me to ask you, do you know how much an average ref gets paid?
I do.
Damn it.
I do. Sorry. Was that supposed to stump me?
Well, do you want to tell the audience?
Yes. The average NFL ref makes around $205,000.
Yes, exactly. So what's crazy is all these tech bros out there, and you know who you are, making double that with zero the anxiety. That's fucked up. Someone needs to stop this.
Dude, you work in tech.
Well, all right, we didn't need to say that
Sorry.
out loud. But I'm just saying, it is nuts. I mean, there is the stress of being a ref sounds unparalleled, and it's not that much money. And we're talking about not just getting into the 4,000, but of that, 1/40th of them actually become NFL refs.
Yeah.
It's harder to get a job as a ref than as a software engineer these days.
Did you just do that right? Oh, I guess 100 over.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That wasn't as crazy.
It wasn't as crazy. But that's
it's
nuts.
Unbelievable. It's so rigorous. It's not only do you not get paid a ton, but it takes you at least 10 years to get there. And you're barely, for a lot of refs, it is a side job. So hopefully they have a real full-time job on the side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
On the off season.
Exactly.
Yes.
But to your point, A, it's incredibly hard to get there. B, it's an incredibly stressful job.
Yes.
And it's thankless. If you're a good ref, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You're a good ref when people don't notice you.
How many NFL refs could you name?
Maybe 4 or 5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sean Hockley, Ed Hockley.
I can't quiz you because I don't know.
There are a couple more.
Okay, but
when
they're household
really,
names.
really good and they do all the big games, some of them have certain antics that you'll know them by, then they tend to stick around. But I would guess most football fans do not know any ref names.
Yeah. You're an anomaly there.
I would say so. But yeah,
that's crazy.
The top refs make $250K, and the average is 205. So let's say the range is 150 to 250. Like,
Yeah.
what a stressful living.
Crazy.
Yeah. Pretty insane.
So I don't know if you went over this, but once you actually get to be one of the 116 members,
121. Yeah.
121 members of the crew, how is it chosen that you actually get to ref the NFL? I mean, get to ref the Super Bowl?
That is a good question. So that's kind of determined throughout each season. And you get graded on every single game that you do as an NFL ref. And over the course of the year, if you continue to be a high performer and a high achiever, you can get added to the postseason. So you're reffing playoff games.
Nice.
And if you do really well in the playoffs, your staff, your crew can get chosen for the Super Bowl. And reffing the Super Bowl tends to come with a bonus.
Yeah.
I saw ranges for that, like anywhere from 20 to 50K just to do that game. So being a high achiever also has its benefits.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But for most of these refs, the season is 4 months long. I'm sure they're doing training in the off season, but like they probably have full-time jobs. Like they do this for the NFL season and then they're not working outside of that.
Yeah. That's crazy. So I, as a kid, my first job outside of, being a high school student was being a line ref for soccer games.
No way.
And yeah, I played soccer in high school. The objective was mostly to call offsides for soccer. But what's crazy is, as a line ref for soccer, you have to always stay with the second defender, the second to last defender. So the last defender is the goalie. The second to last defender dictates when offsides occurs. So you always have to just be running around, making sure you're right in line with that second to last defender. If they move up to half field, you move up to half field. And there's all of these different things. And then there's like all these crazy rules that I had to know of, like if someone curls the ball from inbounds out of bounds, but it lands inbounds, like they're curling a ball. Is that inbounds or out of bounds? There's like direct and indirect kicks. There's corners. There's all of these.
You gotta know your stuff.
I knew my stuff at one point. Now I don't. But there's a pretty intensive training process.
And what level was that?
So it was I refed U18, so 18-year-olds and below. But, even I wasn't the main ref, but even I felt some of the pressure because there was like, dads yelling on the sidelines in their lawn chairs. And I'm just a 14-year-old trying to get some money on the side. So.
I used to ref pickup games in camp for like the campers intramural games, and it was so stressful.
Yeah.
Anytime you make a call, they yell at you. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
You got to be in good shape. Like you're saying, if you're running up and down the soccer field,
the
pitch, I don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It's intense.
But the hardest part, I think the hardest call in soccer and probably is shared within basketball is who hit it out, right? Like who kicked it out in basketball, who touched it last.
Right.
There's always replays on
And
like
everyone's
just
gonna
both
argue.
people are touching at the same time and like someone's, nailed like is the last thing to touch it. It's crazy.
Right. And technology is good and bad in that way. Good because ultimately you get the call right.
Yes.
You review it, but bad because it makes you look bad. Like you didn't get the call right. You didn't do your job correctly. So it puts
and
refs in a tough
this
spot.
leads to another great question that is also on the NFL's website, so you may have already seen it.
Okay.
But in 2022, how long was the average review replay?
Ooh, I have not seen this. I'm going to take a quick guess because sometimes they go to a review and immediately they have the answer. It's super conclusive, but sometimes it takes longer. I'm going to say a minute and 12 seconds.
A little bit longer, 2 minutes and 19 seconds.
That's long.
Yes. Now, of the 42,000 total plays in 2022, how many of them were reviewed?
42,000 plays. How many were reviewed? I think a pretty low percentage. I'm going to say 1,500.
283.
No way.
Yeah. So,
wow, that's very little.
yeah, I assume that maybe that went up in 2023 because I think that there's only more technology and therefore people want to use the technology more and therefore review more plays. But I don't know if that's actually true.
Right. Well, we had also talked about the concept of a challenge for coaches, and that's probably where most of these reviews come from.
Yes.
So if there's a play or a call that the coach doesn't agree with, he throws a red flag onto the field. It's called the challenge flag, and that means they stop the clock. The refs go into the booth and they review it. So that's probably where most of them come from. But under 2 minutes in the first half and the second half, the reviews automatically come from what's called the booth. So the coach doesn't have the option to do that. If it's a close play, a close call, they'll automatically review it.
I see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good call, though. So we kind of mentioned how refs have had scandals in the past. There have been some pretty historically bad calls. I wrote down a few of them. The first one I want to get to, and tell me if you've heard about any of these. The first name you might recognize. Do you know the name Tim Donaghy?
Nope.
So Tim Donaghy was an NBA ref who was investigated by the FBI in 2007 and ultimately sent to jail because he bet on NBA games, on basketball games, and then
Wow.
would make calls to influence the result of the spread.
Man, that's effed up.
Really crazy.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable.
2006?
This is 2007. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and he had been doing it for like 4 or 5 years.
How long did he go to jail for?
He went to jail for 13 months, and then I think he was sentenced to 18, went to jail for 13 months, got parole, and then I think he broke his like house arrest, so he went back to jail for a little while.
gosh.
But yeah, like super, super scandalous.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, getting the FBI involved in sports
Yeah.
is like, whoa, okay, this is really legit.
Yeah.
So that was a wild one. The one I told you about the other day, this MLB player named...
This was crazy, by the way.
This is really crazy.
Send a link to the YouTube in the show notes.
Yeah,
this was
I
nuts.
will. If you guys haven't heard about this is so crazy and so sad. There was a pitcher on the Detroit Tigers whose name was Armando Galarraga. Very non-notable career. I think he played for 6 or 7 years. He was never an all-star. He was never such a great pitcher. But in 2010, he was pitching a perfect game. A perfect game in baseball has only been thrown 24 times in history. Baseball's been around for a really long time, so it's incredibly rare. Through 8 2/3 innings, through 26 outs, he had gotten 26 batters in a row out. A perfect game is when you go 27 up, 27 down.
Mm-hmm.
No errors, no hits, no hit by pitches, no walks. Everything is perfect. With 1 out left in the 9th inning, he gets a ground ball to the first baseman. He runs over to cover first. First baseman flips it to him. He steps on the base, and the runner is out, and the umpire calls him safe. And back then, there was no replay.
So crazy.
So the call stood.
Well, it was crazy because there's no replay in real life, but then us as the audience,
Yeah.
like we can see the replay and we're like, what the fuck just happened?
Immediately after on the TV broadcast, and for all the fans in the stadium, they see that he got it
God.
wrong, and it's so brutal.
It's
for
so
both of them. Like,
disappointing.
you feel for the ump in that moment because you're like, he knows he screwed this up. Even if the player was safe, most umpires would have just called him out. It's a
Yeah.
pretty historic moment, and he just reflexively said safe, and then he was.
Can he
that was
go
it.
back on that?
Can't take it back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad. That was
so
really sad. And honestly, I feel for the ump, but he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that.
No, he screwed up.
He screwed up.
And people know his name. His name is Jim Joyce because he messed this up so badly. This is
Yeah.
what he's known for.
That's crazy.
And they actually had it was such a big deal and such a crazy moment for sports. A, it accelerated the need for instant replay in baseball. B, the two of them had a reunion the next year on the field to basically like show everyone that they had made up and that everything was cool. Because fans were furious
Yeah,
and super
I have to
upset.
imagine.
Yeah. So that was a wild one. Just an ump really ruining someone's amazing moment.
Yes.
Another pretty famous one in the 1972 Olympics. The U.S. played the USSR in the championship of the basketball like Olympics.
Okay.
And the USSR basically got to redo their inbounds play 3 times. And on the third one, they got a layup to go up by 1 as time expired. And the U.S. contested it. They won't accept their silver medals because they think the refs completely gave the game to the USSR.
Are you not allowed to? What do you mean inbound it 3 times?
So the Soviets threw the ball in. There was a clock malfunction.
Oh wow.
And then they gave them the ball back again to inbound it, but took no time off the clock. They inbounded it again, had awarded them a timeout that they didn't really,
I
they weren't
see.
supposed to get. I'm sure Soviets or now Russians would have a much different view
Yeah.
of how this actually went down. But then they gave them a third chance to inbound the ball. They threw it all the way down court, and with 3 seconds left, caught
Wow.
it, put it in as time expired. So very, very infamous refereeing from that game. There, just to rattle off a couple quick ones. In the 1988 Olympics, this boxer, Roy Jones Jr., destroyed his opponent in the gold medal match. His opponent happened to be Korean, but the games were being held in South Korea. And the refs later admitted that, or one of them admitted that they gave the nod to the Korean boxer to appease the crowd in South Korea. And the player, the boxer who actually lost, the Korean boxer, he admitted later on that like it was an absurd ruling, and he apologized to Roy Jones Jr.
Wow.
for how the match was officiated. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Pretty insane. This one you might know because you're a big soccer fan. Do you know the Maradona
Oh yes,
Hand of God?
Hand of God. Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about that one?
Yes. So I don't know the year. What was
1986 was the year.
1986. Maradona goes in for a cross, so he's going towards the net, and someone passes him the ball, and you can head it in soccer, and instead of heading it, he actually hits it with his fist, with his hand.
Right. It's pretty egregious.
It's
also.
pretty egregious.
Yeah.
It sort of looks like it was his head that touched the ball, but really it was his fist.
Right.
Puts it in the back of the net, and then scores like a pretty infamous goal.
Yeah.
And ends up actually that it was in his hand the entire time.
Yeah.
Not his head.
It
And
also is, I guess, in the replay, but like you can kind of see him lift his arm, put it right next to his head.
Yeah.
And
But it also depends on the camera angle because it was like behind his head. So if you were
Yeah.
looking at it just like straight on or from the side, you might not see that it was his hand.
Yeah.
I know that someone else did this very recently. I don't remember who. I think a couple years back where they just referenced, oh, this is very similar to Madonna's Hand of God.
Oh, interesting.
And it was funny. It was a funny reference. But yeah, that was a crazy play. But that was the lack of a call from the ref versus
Yes.
a bad call from a ref.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that put them up 1-0. They won the match 2-1. That was in the quarterfinals against England, and they went on to win the World Cup that year.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
Pretty infamous no call.
Yeah.
The last one that I think is worth noting, in 2019 in football, relevant because we're going to talk about
Like
the Super
American
Bowl
football?
next week. American football.
Yes.
There was a playoff game, the Saints against the Rams, and a running back had run towards the end zone. There was a pass coming towards him, and he basically just gets crushed, checked out of bounds. The ball
Okay.
had not made it there yet, and it was such a blatant, what's called a pass interference,
Yeah.
and there was no call. And everyone watching the replay, in the stadium and at home, there was an audible like, oh my God, how did they miss that? And that following year and the year after, they allowed coaches to challenge pass interference calls. They took that away recently because it got ridiculous.
Okay.
But it was so egregious.
Wow.
Look it up. It's the Saints-Rams. If you look up Saints-Rams pass
Okay.
interference, you'll find it. The Saints would have gone to the Super Bowl. It was a huge controversy.
This was 2019, you said?
2019, yeah.
I vaguely remember this, or just watching a replay of this and be like, ouch.
Yeah, kind of rough.
Kind of rough indeed.
Yeah. But that's kind of the rundown. There are some other crazy egregious calls, non-calls. I've got a whole list if anyone's interested in more of them. I'm happy to send it. Didn't want to get too crazy here.
So can you talk about makeup calls? Because I want to know whether the existence of them is true or not. And also I wanted to talk to you about whether blaming the refs for games is a good excuse or not. And I want to get your take as a sports player yourself.
I will give you the answer to the second question first because I think generally the answer is no. Unless there's a call like this one in the
Will you
Rams.
also tell what makeup calls is?
Yes. Well, I want to answer about can you blame the refs?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll get to make calls in a sec. I don't think blaming the ref is usually an excuse, right?
Okay.
Like there are so many other opportunities you had to make your imprint on the game, irrespective of the refs. You could have made a better pass or a better shot or done something different. It really has to be such an egregious example of the ref influencing the game that more often than not, especially players at such an elite level, it's very rare for them to blame the game on the refs. That's because they know it's a hard job. One or two calls isn't going to change everything that they could have done. And the players always say, like, we could have done more to win. So generally, I don't think it's an acceptable excuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
In terms of makeup calls, so the idea of a makeup call is that a ref will give one team a call, whether it's a penalty in hockey or a flag in football or a foul in basketball, and they'll know afterwards, either they'll see the replay themselves or they'll know afterwards, like, I don't think I made the right call there, or probably could have just not blown my whistle, keep letting them play. So in order to make up for that, they'll give what's called a makeup call, which is what you're describing, where they'll give the other team a call that like probably didn't need to happen.
On the fence. Yeah.
Exactly, but they'll do it anyway. I think this fully exists in sports. I think it exists most often in hockey, but definitely in basketball. If a ref misses a call, they'll give the other team a pretty soft call just to make up for it.
Yeah.
It's harder in football, but I have to think there's a human element where the ref knows if he screwed over a team on one call, he has to kind of even it out.
Yeah.
So I totally think that makeup calls are a thing. I'm sure refs would tell you that they don't think of it that way, but it has to psychologically creep in. Just
I
be
have
like,
to imagine.
Yeah. So
Yeah. That's cool.
I would think so.
Yeah. They, from like a moral perspective, it's a very fine line, but I do think that from just a fair play perspective and really even out the playing field, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If a ref makes one call that seems very favorable, to just sort of try to balance it out.
Did you ever make makeup calls as a soccer ref?
I don't remember. I mean, again, the calls I was making were not crazy. It was probably like, oh, I thought it went out on the wrong person. Now to make a makeup call, you need to pick a call to make up for it that's on the line. So you not only need to be thinking about a call that's close enough where you can call it a makeup call, but then making sure that it was close enough and parents are like, dude, like that was an obvious call.
Yeah.
So I don't think I thought in that meta world, but if I was a good enough ref, I would probably be making makeup calls.
Oh, so you would do makeup calls.
If I was good enough to recognize a call was favoring one side and also another call was on the fence enough where I could favor the other side and not get flack for it, then I would make the makeup call. But I don't think I did that usually.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
That was a long-winded answer, but no, not usually.
It's got to be so tough to be able to make makeup calls.
Yeah, because if you think about it, let's just take NBA, because NBA has the most amount of calls generally, so it has the most amount of abilities to make a makeup call. The makeup call needs to be a close call.
Right.
And then you need to both recognize it's a close call, recognize what the wrong answer is, and then make that call all in like an instantaneous moment.
Yeah, they're moving so fast.
Yeah,
it's so difficult. So difficult to do. The funny thing about NBA refs is that sometimes if a player goes up for a shot and they get fouled, sometimes the ref will wait to see if the shot goes in. And if the shot goes in, they won't call a foul. And if the shot misses, they'll call a foul. And that makes no sense. A foul is a foul. If they got fouled, just blow the whistle. So there definitely is some fudging of the rules. And the refs have a tough spot. No one is ever happy with them. So I don't envy them.
Yeah.
Sweet. So should we dive into a little bit of our rookie combine here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So for our rookie combine this week, we are going to be quizzing Ethan on
the first half, and then I'll be quizzing you.
Okay. I'm excited for it. You told me not to peek, so I didn't peek. We're going to be quizzing Ethan on different NFL penalty calls. And the way this game is going to work is we're going to give him a call, and then we're going to see, is it real or is it fake? Okay? Before we dive into those, quick basics for you guys, because these are going to come up next week. The 4 most common penalties in football are a false start. That's when someone on the offense moves before the ball is snapped. Okay. So before the ball gets sent back to the quarterback, if someone on the offense like budges or moves a little bit, it's considered a false start.
Even side to side.
So they're allowed to move laterally.
Okay.
But once they're set in their position, they can't flinch. They can't move forward a little bit. They have to be super still.
Yep.
And that moves them back 5 yards. There's offsides, which is when the defense is on the opposite side of the ball before it gets thrown back. So they're like in the offense's zone, basically, before the play has started. There's holding, which is just when you hold a player.
And
them.
I'm sure there's nuance there. You can't hold at all, or
you're really not supposed to. What the refs look for is if you're grabbing them outside of their like chest waist area. So if you get outside on the side of their jersey or on the side of their shoulder pad, that's like a dead giveaway. But if a player, let's say you and I are playing against each other and you're trying to run to your right and I grab the front of your jersey to prevent you from going there, that's a hold also. Very, very common call. And the last one we talked about is pass interference. It's when you interfere with the receiver's ability to make a catch before the ball gets there and you like hit them instead of hitting the ball.
Gotcha.
All right,
good.
So here we go. The less common calls that Ethan is we'll see how you do.
Okay, I didn't peek, so
we'll see how you do. All right, your first one, grabbing.
So, and I'm trying to determine if these are real or fake.
Real or fake. Grabbing.
Okay, grabbing sounds too similar to holding, so I'm going to say that's fake.
Nice, 1 for 1.
Let's go.
Grabbing is not real. Okay, your next one, crackback.
Ouch, that just sounds painful. Oh God. It could be. I'm thinking of like some MMA fighter just destroying their opponent right now. I don't think it's a real call. Okay. I'm gonna say no.
It is a real call.
Oh my God.
There is something called an illegal crackback block.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It's when someone, if you're on offense and you're like not blocking someone directly, but one of your teammates is blocking them, and you basically dive in on the side to try to like impede their progress. Very, very dangerous, which is why it's a penalty, but you're kind of like chopping them off at their legs. It's called an illegal crackback block.
Oh my gosh. And this can happen both on offense or defense. Like you as someone playing on offense can dive into a defensive player's knees and vice versa.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That is a
I
crazy
actually
call.
think it mostly applies to offense because that's more often when you see it. It's like a player trying to help their team block. But I guess in theory it could happen on defense.
Doesn't it just sound like a John Cena move?
100%.
It's ridiculous.
It's a crazy name.
How many yards is it? How many yards is the penalty?
I think it's considered a personal foul, which is a 15-yard penalty because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Any
It
NFL
sounds
penalties
dangerous.
that are dangerous, they give you 15 yards.
Okay. Next. I'm 1 for 2.
1 for 2. Okay, your next one is neutral zone infraction.
I have heard of this.
Okay.
I don't know what it really means. It sort of sounds like you're like starting a fight off on the sideline, like the neutral zone,
Right.
like you're infracting on it in some way. It's not that, but that's what I'm thinking about. So what does it mean?
Okay, you got it right. It is real. The neutral zone, before a play starts, the football is resting on the field. The width of that football, so the defense is on one side of the ball, the offense is on the other side of the ball. The width of the football is considered the neutral zone. So you are not allowed to be standing in that width.
Interesting. It almost sounds like something like fans would actually, like if fans get into a tussle in the stands, like, all right, this is a neutral zone infraction.
Anything that's called infraction feels like it's just like a funny thing.
Yeah. That's funny.
Okay, so you're 2 for 3.
Okay, 2 for 3.
Your next one is illegal deception.
Wow, that is ridiculous. That it sounds like you're playing a board game and like you're like, those like social delusion board games like Mafia.
Yeah.
Like illegal deception type thing. Anyway, deception's got to be a part of football. Like that's the whole point of football. You're deceiving people. So I think this is a fake penalty.
Brilliant logic. It is fake.
Nice.
I made that one up. I had fun making up some of these.
That was funny.
That was good.
2 for 4. 2 for
Illegal.
4? Yeah.
3 for 4.
3
no.
for 4.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. You're doing all right. All right, your next one is kickoff out of bounds.
No, this is not a penalty. This is not a penalty. You can kick it off out of bounds. I think that it's not wise to do so, but I do think that you're allowed to do that.
Incorrect. Kickoff out of bounds is a penalty. The way it works is
This is ridiculous.
Okay, so most kickoffs, as you'll see, this might confuse some of you. Most kickoffs go either into the end zone or out of the back of the end zone.
Okay.
That's allowed. What's not allowed is when the kickoff goes out of bounds within the 100 yards. So let's say it goes out of bounds at the 10-yard line or at the 5-yard line. That's a penalty. And the offense gets to start at the 40-yard line.
What if it just okay? So even if it bounces out of bounds,
Correct.
If it has a bad bounce,
Can't bounce out of bounds.
Wow.
That's why a lot of kickers now, they don't want the player to return it, but they also don't want to risk the chance of it getting bounced off to the side. So they'll just kick it out of the back of the end zone, and then the team starts at the 25.
Why is that a penalty?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't. It doesn't make any sense. Like it should just be that if you kick it out of bounds, you start from the 25.
Yeah,
But
or you start from where it goes out of bounds, right? Isn't that usually the thing? If
So
you're
that's when you're punting.
Yes.
When you're punting, yes. But for the kickoff after you score, it's a kickoff, a regular kickoff. I think the reason they don't do it is because they want teams to be able to return it because sometimes returns can be exciting. And if you can just kick it out of bounds, you could just turn to your left. Kicker would just boot it out of bounds into the stands.
Yeah.
So I think they want to prevent that. That would be my guess. But yes, kickoff out of bounds is a penalty.
Crazy. 3 for 5. 60%.
3 for 5. All right, your next one is cutting.
I mean, it sounds like an emo high schooler, but I've never heard of it, so I can't imagine. I mean, I've watched some football, and also I play Ultimate Frisbee, and Ultimate Frisbee cutting is just when you're what they're called a cutter is pretty much a receiver,
Okay,
and
like
you
running through the field.
Yeah, you're cutting. I don't think it's a penalty.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Way to stick with your logic there. Cutting is not a penalty.
Okay.
Okay. Your next one is leaping.
Leaping. Okay, leaping.
Ethan's face after all these is priceless. He's just like, why are you doing this to me?
I actually am pretty sure you can't jump over a dude
Yes.
in football.
Yeah.
So I think that's what leaping is because your spikes on your cleats could like hit someone's head or something. Is that why?
I don't know if that's what it is. And in a lot of scenarios, you actually can't jump over players. The specific scenario is if you're on defense and the other team is snapping the ball backwards for like a field goal. You can't jump over the guy who's snapping the ball because he's looking down. So it's dangerous for him if he's looking down and then tosses it behind him and looks back up, and there's someone stomping on his head, basically.
Yeah.
So it's for that reason. That you
Because
can't do
I was under the misconception that you can't do it at all, but then I see all these highlights of like receivers who
Yeah.
like leap over dudes
Yeah.
to get into the end zone.
Yeah.
And those are not penalties.
Those are not penalties.
There
but
you go.
leaping is a penalty. You got that one right.
Okay. What am I? 5 for 7?
5 for 7.
5 for 7.
All right, I've got 2 more for you.
Okay.
The
Here we
next
go.
one is batting.
Batting. Okay. Batting, I don't think it's a penalty. Batting is when, well, I don't know the exact time that you do this, but if you're a lineman on defense, you can bat the ball down. If the QB throws it, then you can hit it down, and that's legal. Like,
That
you can
is
do that.
legal. Unfortunately, that is not what batting is. Batting is a penalty.
All right, what's batting?
Batting is when
These things are not frequent penalties. I want to be clear.
No,
Okay.
incredibly infrequent.
Okay.
That's why they're tough. Batting is when there's a loose ball on the field and a player dives into like the area where the ball is, and instead of trying to recover it, they just punch it because they're trying to punch it out of bounds so that their team can keep possession. That's considered illegal batting.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
I know. All right, your
That's a
last
hard
one, I think you'll get ineligible man downfield.
Ineligible man downfield. I think this is a thing. It sort of seems like the penalty you would give a fan who's streaking on the field.
Again,
you know what I mean?
Ineligible man downfield.
Yeah, it
sounds
like only
hilarious.
makes sense of like a naked dude on the field. It's like, all right, he's ineligible. You know what I mean?
Great call.
This is a thing. It's not what I said. It might be, if I had to give a real guess, people have positions in football, and positions are confined to certain areas of the field.
Yeah.
And if someone's in the wrong area, they're ineligible man downfield.
That's basically what it is.
All right.
Way to close that out on a high. Ineligible man downfield. On offense, you have certain players who are allowed to go and catch the ball. And your offensive line, the players who are blocking for the quarterback, are generally not allowed to be past a certain part of the field because that would be considered ineligible man downfield. So if you wanted to be eligible, you would have to go over to the ref, make a signal to him. You're like wiping your hands on your chest. And that signals to him that you are reporting as an eligible receiver.
Okay, so this came up recently in news because
did.
of this whole like Lions thing, or like
Yes, the Lions played the Cowboys.
Yes.
One of the last games of the regular season. I think the last game. And a Lions player went over to the ref and reported as eligible, but the ref was looking the other way at a different player, never announced that that player was eligible. He caught a touchdown that would have won the game, and the refs threw a penalty flag for ineligible man downfield.
Can't they look at the replay though and
You
see?
can't, not for penalties. You cannot overturn penalty calls.
So would that be a time that you could blame the refs for the game?
Yes, I think Lions fans would blame the refs for the game. Yeah.
Do you think they're justified in doing so?
In that scenario, yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay.
But that being said, the Lions still decided to go for it on 4th down, even though they could have just kicked the field goal to tie it.
Okay.
So, yeah, a lot of controversy
tricky.
there.
It's tricky.
Yeah, there's some good videos on YouTube that break down what happened there, and
Yeah.
it's a fun one. But yeah, good reference there. All right, so you have a quiz for me?
Yeah, I have a quiz for you. So my quiz, because you probably know the names of the penalties, I'm going to give you the hand signals, and
Okay.
You're going to tell me what they are.
Okay. I hope your explanation for our audio only listeners is up to par.
The first hand signal is like this: hand over heart, essentially doing the national anthem.
Hand over heart.
See, I knew this would be hard.
I don't know. What is that?
It is a substitution infraction.
That's so tough.
These are going to be really
These
tough.
are going to be bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Like never get called.
Not only do I not know the hand signals, I have no idea what the penalties are themselves.
So this is illegal substitution?
This is illegal This is substitution infraction. I don't know the difference between that
Okay.
and an illegal substitution, but
Okay.
there might be one.
All right, 0 for 1.
The next one,
Hands
This.
over the head.
hands over the head, like you're doing the Haka New Zealand, what is that, rugby game?
Yes, that
Yeah.
one I know. That is the signal for a safety.
Yes. That's the signal for a safety. 1 for 2. Okay, this is crazy. Pretty much you're holding out your hand as if you're doing heads up 7-up without the thumb.
That's the signal? Just
This is
hand
the signal.
straight out? I mean, this is like kind of what they do in basketball for a charge. I have no idea.
This is an inadvertent whistle.
What? So the ref just calling it on himself?
I don't know what that means, but then it says face press box.
No idea what face press box
Okay,
is.
word.
Just
Well, that's what that is.
3 words put together. An inadvertent whistle is when the ref blows the whistle and they didn't mean to.
Okay.
So they're basically saying like, no, ignore that. Like,
Okay, I guess they're doing this too.
let's keep moving on. But I had no idea that was the signal for it.
Okay, next one. Next one is hands out in front of you, like you're holding a baby. It's like you're Oliver Twist asking for more. Palms facing the sky.
Okay.
What is it?
This one, I think I know. I might need to scrape the recesses of my memory here for this. Is that... I thought that was illegal substitution. But I
don't know what this means.
what
I
is
can't
it?
even steer you in any direction.
What is it?
It's helping runner interlocked blocking. Are these real? I got these from an official Football Signals poster made in 2001, so maybe they're a little outdated.
2001?
Yeah, that's fair. I just looked at the date on the poster. Okay.
Oh, man. I've never heard of that.
Okay, wow.
I also think the new signal for illegal substitution is when they do this.
Maybe that's what... this doesn't have actions, but maybe that's what they're doing. Like, I wish they had like a little arrow saying the refs bring his hands back and forth.
I guess for those of you watching, I was sending my arms outward and then moving them up and down.
Yeah. Also, this would be a good time to check us out on YouTube because these hand signals will be a lot easier to interpret.
Yeah, true. Okay, give me an easier one. These
Okay.
are impossible.
These are hard. Okay, I'm gonna stand up for this one because apparently refs
Take the
use
mic
their
with
feet.
you.
Okay, you're pretty much doing this. You're tripping yourself from behind.
All right. I'm going to guess illegal tripping.
That's good.
All right, thank
That's
you.
good.
Thanks
illegal tripping.
Thanks for giving me a layup.
That was a little bit of a layup, but honestly, it's sort of ridiculous that refs are just like tripping themselves.
Right.
But the other thing that's a funny one, I'm standing up again, and I'm clapping my feet together. I think they go like, it's like some like.
They like jump in the air like
No,
they're in a Disney show?
yeah. Do you know what that is?
That's what they do?
I think so.
No
This one
way.
actually does have an arrow. So yeah, this one is a fairly well-known penalty. I had heard of it. We also,
Really?
yes, we hadn't talked about it, but we talked about something parallel to this.
So I'm going to guess it has to do with leaping or jumping, but I don't know any like similar calls. What would it
Well,
be?
maybe that was a bad hint.
That's okay.
Running into or roughing the kicker or holder.
What?
Is that right? God, we might have to cut this.
None of these are up to date. I think for running into the, you know what? Maybe you're right, but I'm pretty sure the motion for running into the kicker is they just lift up one of their legs because they go personal foul, hand across the other arm.
You might be right. Like,
and then they go running into the kicker and they make a kicking motion.
okay, and to be clear, this is a black and white poster from 2001 that doesn't have any arrows, so you could just as well be right.
All right, I'm gonna give myself that. I don't think they're doing the heel click.
Yeah, maybe not. Okay, next. Pretty much patting your head,
Patting
something
the
you
head.
would see in Simon Says.
This one I've got. I'm pretty sure that's the signal for ineligible man downfield.
Nice.
There we go.
Great. Last one. It essentially looks like a tummy rub.
A tummy rub. Oh boy.
You ever see this one?
Yes, but I can't figure out what it's for.
So this one, it's actually snack time, Capri Suns and orange slices. No, I'm just kidding. But this one I made up.
You made one up?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not real.
No, it's not real.
Because the signal for reporting as eligible is moving your hands across your chest. So I was like, maybe you didn't report properly.
Yeah, this one, no. This one's just like, I'm hungry.
Okay.
You know, that's the type of
All right,
thing.
so that's not a real thing.
That's
Good.
not a real thing.
I'm glad I didn't know it.
Yeah. But it would be nice if there was snack time with,
Yeah.
orange slices and high C.
That would be nice.
Alas.
Like being in 6th grade again.
I know.
Those were good times. right.
Okay, so a couple interesting tidbits about hand signals. There are more than 35 of them total.
Wow.
That's
a lot.
Yeah, it can be traced back to 1929, college game between Syracuse and Cornell. But what's interesting is until 1955, officials used a military-type salute like this to call unnecessary roughness penalties. But the American Legion, which is this nonprofit for war veterans, asked the NFL to change the signal because children were confusing the football signal with the salute to the nation's flag. When the American Legions quizzed elementary school students about the meaning of the salute, a 12-year-old boy responded, "That means unnecessary roughness." And they asked to change.
Wow, some things never changed. Back then in the 20s,
Yeah.
people were just referencing football.
Exactly.
Now, in
12-year-old
the new
boys.
20s, still referencing football. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one. So that's what
I didn't
got.
do
Yeah.
too great.
You didn't do too
but
great, but I
also-
also didn't do too great in explaining. I have to imagine.
No, well, your explanations were good. I think the graphic that we relied on here, not
Yeah.
as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe they are just uncommon calls and I didn't know them.
Yes.
That could be.
Another quick quiz for you.
Yeah.
And sorry about all these random quizzes.
No, that's okay. These are
How many NFL refs are there on the field at a given time, and can you name them?
fun. So there is the head official that I know. There's usually a line judge. That's 2. There's one who stands directly in the middle of the defense. I don't know what his name is. There are usually 1 or 2 sideline judges on either side of the field. So that gets us to 7. And then I'm pretty sure there's one back behind the play where the quarterback is. I'm going to say either 7 or 8.
Great. 8-man crew.
Yes, let's
Referee,
go.
umpire. What does the umpire do?
Either the umpire is the main official or the referee is the main official.
Okay, the referee's the main official, I think, because they wear the white hats.
Yes, the white hat is the main official.
What? So also, I just learned doing my research. There's one person with a white hat, and everyone else has a black hat.
Yes.
They're called the black hatters and the white hatters. And the referee's the white hat. The umpire has a black hat. I guess he's a different official.
Yeah, the umpire must be the one who stands in the middle of the defense.
Yes. Line judge, side judge, down judge, back judge, field judge, and replay official.
So those are the 6. You named.
Those are the 7 black hatters.
The 7 black hatters, and then there's
There's the referee.
the referee.
Yeah.
I did all right there.
Yeah, you did pretty damn
pretty
well.
good.
That was good. That was very good.
Sweet. All right. Well, that's fun. I like those quizzes.
That was good.
We got anything else, or should we get into Hold My Beer?
Let's get into Hold My Beer.
All right. Let's do it. You got any sponsors, or no?
We don't have any sponsors for today.
That's okay.
But we will definitely talk disparagingly about the city infrastructure because the Sea Line sucks
Yeah.
a lot.
So our not sponsors, the subway
Yeah,
system.
our not sponsor, or our sponsor is the MTA to hopefully scrounge up enough
Fix
money
it.
for them
Yeah.
to fix this thing.
Yeah, and MTA, please don't come after us. We're not big enough yet for that.
Yeah.
We can't handle a lawsuit.
We can't handle a lawsuit. It's
And if
true.
you guys want to sponsor a segment in a future week,
yeah,
hit us up.
hit us up.
All right, so 3 topics again for this week. We'll start with the NFL because the Super Bowl is coming up. We have our matchup. It's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers.
Big.
Brief recap of the games that happened this past week. The Chiefs beat the Ravens 17-10. The Ravens were a 4.5-point favorite in that game, so a bit of an upset. That game had 55.5 million viewers, which set another record, obviously.
Records are being set
Every week.
every week.
Every week. Most in an AFC championship game in history.
Nice.
So pretty cool. That game was just kind of weird. It was boring for a lot of it. The Ravens had a pretty big meltdown. Not a meltdown, but they had a receiver get a bad penalty when they were pretty close to scoring a touchdown. And then that same player dove to get into the end zone and another player punched the ball out. So he fumbled it right before he got into the end zone. Totally blew the momentum. A game that the Ravens should have won, but they lost because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs don't lose.
Yes.
And
And
then
who's the Ravens quarterback again?
Lamar Jackson.
And he's never been to a Super Bowl before.
Correct. Never been.
So he's had a little bit of a tarnished legacy up to this point.
He has. He's won one MVP. He's going to win the MVP this year, and he has had his struggles in the playoffs.
Is it usual that someone wins MVP even though they don't make it to the Super Bowl?
Not super well, in a given season, yes.
But the MVP is picked much before playoffs even start.
So the MVP is actually picked after the playoffs, but they're only supposed to consider the regular season. So the people who vote on it.
I see.
Yeah. But yeah, he's definitely had a tough run. And the MVP doesn't always make it to the Super Bowl. The other game was the 49ers against the Lions.
That was a crazy game.
Awesome game. You watched this one?
I watched only the last little bit, but pretty crazy.
Amazing game. The Lions were up 17 going into halftime. The 49ers made a big run. The Lions made 2 pretty crucial mistakes. they could have gone up by 17, which is 3 possessions.
Yep.
When you say it's a 3-possession game, it means the other team would need to get the ball 3 times and score on each of them to either tie or take the lead.
Score a touchdown, too.
So if they had gone up by 17, the 49ers would have needed a touchdown, another touchdown, and then a field goal just to tie the game.
Okay.
So, and they can't do that in less than 3 possessions.
Yep.
Instead of kicking a pretty short field goal, the Lions went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. Huge momentum shift. And then later in the game, the Lions had the same opportunity. They could have kicked the field goal. They didn't. They didn't get it. And they basically left 6 points on the board. They ended up losing by 3. They could have won the game. So
that stinks.
yeah, pretty brutal. If you're a Lions fan, this one was definitely tough. Again, they have never been to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so
that's sad.
Really, really brutal. But we do have a fun matchup in the Super Bowl in a week and a half. Chiefs against the 49ers, so tune into that one. In the world of tennis, did you follow the Australian Open?
I did follow a little bit.
Yeah, I know that you're a bit of a tennis fan.
Yes.
Yannick Sinner, I don't know if I pronounced his first name correctly.
He
is 22 years old, and he won the Australian Open.
There you
A
go.
lot of young people winning major sporting events. The Australian Open, for those of you who don't know, is one of 4 majors in tennis. The majors are the big tournaments, biggest competition, biggest prize money. And he beat Novak Djokovic in the semifinals, which was very significant because Djokovic hadn't lost since 2018.
In the
Australian Open. Yeah,
That's what I
he's a
heard.
beast. He didn't play in 2022. That was the only reason that he didn't win again in that year.
That was when he decided not to take the COVID vaccine?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yes, he was not allowed to play because he
go.
did not take the vaccine. And Novak Djokovic had won the Australian Open 10 times previously, so he was
Crazy.
a heavy favorite. And this
Also
guy,
heard
Sinner,
that
beat him.
he was on a 33-game win streak or
Yes.
match win streak in the Australian Open. So
Yeah,
this is crazy.
He also had, once making it to the semifinals in the Australian Open, had never lost. So
Crazy.
Pretty big upset. Really cool. And then in the women's side, Sabalenka, she's 25 years old. She won easily. She just breezed through the competition. So
Easy
pretty
money,
cool
baby.
for her. And then the last piece of sports news that's a fun fact for you guys, fun tidbit to share. Have you heard of Caitlin Clark?
Nope.
So Caitlin Clark has become a bit of a household name for a few reasons
Not in my
our
household.
household. She is a women's college basketball player. She is a household name in our home because she looks eerily like Orly, my wife.
That's funny.
We went to a bar in South Jersey one time, and a friend of ours had a Caitlin Clark jersey. She plays at Iowa, and he gave it to Orly to wear, and people legitimately went up to her to take pictures with her.
That's
They were
hilarious.
like, oh
She's
my
got to
God,
milk that a little more.
Caitlin Clark is here. This is insane. So
What team does she play for?
She plays for Iowa.
No, Orly.
Oh, Orly. Anytime Caitlin Clark is in the news, which is pretty often because she's really good, I always tell Orly, like, hey, you had a big night last night.
That's funny.
So Caitlin Clark, huge name in sports right now. She had a card, a signed player card, sell for $78,000. So Serena Williams is the only female athlete who has had a card sell for more. She had one sold for $120,000. Of the top 10 most valuable women's cards in history, Serena Williams has 8 of them. She's a beast.
Wow.
But Caitlin Clark now has, I think it's number 3 on the list of most valuable cards sold. So she is definitely making a name for herself.
Well, what's also crazy about that is even WNBA players make like $200,000 a
I
year.
know.
So this is half of her salary.
I also don't
hypothetically.
know if she makes the money for it. Like someone else, I think, owns the card, and she just happened to sign it.
Oh,
So
wow.
I hope she gets a
Yeah.
bit of money from that because that would stink if she didn't.
Maybe she should dilute the market and put a couple more signed cards in.
That's a good idea. If she's not getting
just a little bit,
if
not
she's
too
not
many.
getting any money from that,
Yeah.
it would be pretty cool. Yeah, but sold for $78,000. The only woman
That's great.
woman to ever sell one for more.
That's
Serena
awesome.
Williams. That's our hold my beer.
We have one more question.
Yeah, should we get to that one?
Yeah, this is a great question. I don't know who asked this, but
Yeah, this one was anonymous.
anonymous. Would you rather only be able to play sports or only be able to watch sports?
Oh, that is such a tough question. Do you have an answer?
I mean, yeah, because I don't watch sports that much. And I love playing more alternative sports. My favorite sports besides running, which I believe is truly a tremendous sport.
Okay.
It are darts and bowling and ultimate frisbee, and I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I would not put those down to watch an NBA game or NFL game.
You wouldn't miss watching sports.
I wouldn't. I mean, I love watching tennis. I also play a lot of racket sports, tennis and ping pong and things like
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
But I love playing sports, and watching sports is great. But I wouldn't put it past playing.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be able to live without ping pong.
Yeah. Jeremy Goodman, you're on my radar.
These two have an intense ping pong rivalry.
Yeah.
I have
like
a couple
every
friends
Wednesday.
who want to get in on that. They
Yeah.
asked me if I wanted to play. I'm like, no, but I know your guy.
Yeah, we know the
Um,
plays.
This one's tough because I watch so much sports. I don't know if so many sports, so much sports, whatever it is, I watch a ton. And I don't get to play as often as I'd like. I play basketball once or twice a week. I go on a run every now and then. I guess
You're running a half pretty soon.
I am running a half marathon. If any of you guys want to come cheer me on February 25th
Yep.
in the Central Park half marathon, please do.
Yep.
I would appreciate that. Yeah, like I don't get to play as often as I would like, but I get so much joy out of playing, and it's such good exercise. Like I'd rather play basketball for 2 hours any day than go to the gym. So I'd probably choose playing sports, but
That would be tough for
it would
you,
be a
I know.
really, really tough decision.
I mean, the other thing is like, if you want to call like weightlifting or even going to the gym a sport, then it's a no-brainer. Like
Right.
if it's like, would you rather exercise and not watch sports or never exercise and watch sports?
Right.
Then you've got to exercise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on the definition a little bit.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if you gave me options, like for each sport, I could choose to watch or
Yeah.
play. That would be an easier one.
Yeah, that's
watch
funny.
football, not play. I'm not
What about
trying to
basketball?
Get brain injuries. Basketball, I would play and not
Yeah.
watch. I as much as basketball is a great sport to watch, I just love playing it.
Yeah. Okay, well, if you want to sponsor a segment, please let us know.
Yeah, and then next week we're talking about the Super Bowl. So get your questions in.
Yep. We're going to release an early episode to get ready for the big game.
Yeah, so
When
that's gonna.
when we
We're
release
recording Sunday. Let's try to release by Tuesday.
Okay.
We want you guys to be prepared as far enough in advance as
Yeah.
possible. So we're gonna release a little earlier next week. Just a heads up.
Rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram.
On Spotify,
On
give us 5
Spotify.
stars.
Yes, 5 stars.
If you think it's less than 5 stars, don't review, please.
Yeah, please don't. We're like your Airbnb hosts.
Yeah.
And Rookie Mistakes _pod is our handle.
Yep.
And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We'll
Yep.
see you next week.
Catch you next week.